Hey, this is Jeff Wick, editor of the Fayette County Record newspaper, and we've come across the county line into Lee County. We're in beautiful Serbin, Texas, here at St. Paul Lutheran Church, joined by Pastor John Schmidt and Jack Wiederholt, church member and instrumental part of the restoration of this wonderful church here at St. Paul Lutheran Church. Joined as always by Andy Balin and H.H. House. We've got the first copy of the Fayette County Record. We're going to present to the folks here, talk a little bit about the headlines in the new edition of the paper, but then shift our focus to this beautiful church, which is not officially in the group of painted churches in the area, but as you can tell, it's definitely worthy of that name, a beautiful painted church here at St. Paul. But guys, y'all want to fill everybody in on some of the headlines before we talk more about St. Paul?
Sure thing. At the top of the front page with the election coming up next week, we have a story about the equipment that's used to count ballots in the election. So you can read all about how that's done in Fayette County. We have paper ballots, and we have machines that count them. And they have to be tested every year, and they just ran a public test a few days ago, and it passed with flying colors. So you can read all about that. Also, the LaGrange City Council had a meeting last week, and the Citizens Alliance came and once again presented some opposition to the Hope Hill housing project in LaGrange. You can read all about what they had to say at that meeting in today's paper. And this weekend was the Flatonia chili spill. It's always a lot of fun in Flatonia. Got some great pictures all throughout the paper.
Is that you on the front winning that jalapeno eating contest?
That's not me. But there's always lots of shenanigans over there in Flatonia during the chili spill, and you can read all about that as well.
Pancho, you were hanging out with some big movers and shakers in Round Top this weekend.
There were more shenanigans in Round Top. I don't. Well, the Round Top Town Council had a public hearing. It's the third hearing, and they're getting ready to try to pass the new land use ordinance next Monday. Rick Perry was out at Winedale introducing Rodney Foster. Radney Foster.
Rick Perry introduced him properly, right?
Radney Foster told a story about being introduced as Radney Forrester one time. I was also over in the media mecca of, what do you call that place? Valhalla. Home of the Gods, where there's a movie being filmed. Josh Duhamel and Leslie Bibb. What do they call it? What kind of memoir? I got it right here. Grief memoir. And then James Wessels had a retirement party in Round Top. That was good.
Big sports weekend. LaGrange turned a close game at halftime into a big win over Smithville. Things weren't so fortunate for Schulenburg and Flatonia this weekend. They suffered some tough losses. Volleyball playoffs start this week. All 5 Fayette County public high school teams are in the playoffs, so it'll be exciting to see how they do over the next couple days. But you can read all about that and a lot more in the new edition of the Fayette County Record. But let's turn our attention to beautiful St. Paul Lutheran Church here. Gentlemen, thank y'all so much for having us today. Tell us, just more about this beautiful church that, Mr. Wiederholt, you were telling me, really kind of a true homemade church. Just the artisans in this area used the skills they had and, built this from the ground up, right?
That's correct. They built it in a similar fashion to the church that they left in Germany. And we both have been to that church, and you feel right at home because it's the same pattern.
Similar, really.
Is this. And the stonemasons who built the walls were on the ship, the Ben Nevis, in 1854 that came to Texas. So they were just home people.
Those were Windish people.
That's right, Windish people, or Sorbish.
Sort of.
Same
Sort of.
same people.
And you were saying, Pastor, that a large number of the people in this congregation were Windish.
Windish.
And they used to have Windish services.
Correct. Used to about 1920-ish when
That's
the
when-
last Windish service was held. And we had German then. They picked that up until about 1998 and would have two services, German services. And now we do German on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then our Windish Fest, annual Windish Fest, which is always the fourth Sunday in September. And we have a full German service.
Does anybody out here still speak Windish?
Words.
Words. A few words.
Phrases, but no conversations.
You know, the story I heard about the Windish is that there was this large immigrant German population, and here come the Windish, and there was, one ship full of them, and another ship full of them went to Australia somewhere, and they just decided, well, we'll try to hold on to our Windish culture, but as far as everybody else is concerned, we don't mind if they think we're German, because that means that there's more of us.
Yeah. Well, they began to realize if they talked Windish, the only people they could talk to were themselves. And there were Germans in the area, and if they wanted to commerce, buy and sell stuff, German was definitely the language to use because more people understood that. They didn't understand Windish.
Pastor, tell us about this pulpit here behind us. From what I understand, the tallest pulpit in Texas?
It's the tallest pulpit that we have in Texas, or at least that we know of. And I usually hit my head every single day trying to get in and out of the pulpit. But the winds were definitely shorter than I am today. So,
What's it like being up there on a Sunday, with the congregation, two levels here? I bet it's just a really beautiful
it is. It's
beautiful
unique because
service.
you have people on your same level, and you have some that are always sitting downstairs, and so you're able to look at them, if you will, eye to eye as you're upstairs. But then, having folks down here, I know when I've sat downstairs, you get a crick in your neck always looking up. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The men originally were assigned to the balconies. The women sat in these pews. The children sat with mama until they were in first grade. When they were in first grade, the boys had to go upstairs
They
with
graduated
papa,
upstairs.
and the young girls had to come to these side
Oh, wow.
pews if they were in school. And you can see this was for the women to put their feet on to keep them off of the cold rock floor.
Not for kneeling.
Not for kneeling, no.
And they cram these pews in here.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot
No.
of room.
It's crowded. But this was for their hymn book,
Right.
and that was for their footrest. So that takes, at least 6 inches or more
Right.
of the space already.
It's not like that airplane I was just on where if you pay extra $50, get a little more.
And Jack, tell us a little bit about the renovation of this church over the years.
Well, the most recent renovation, I guess, began in about 1991. Air conditioning passed by 2 votes. So it's been air conditioned since 1991.
Did you vote for air conditioning?
I did. My father-in-law voted no. Then these columns that really give a lot of support, they go all the way up to the rafters
Go all the way up.
in the attic. They were restored in 1993. And then in 1994, all the painting was redone. The ceiling, the stencils were put, they had been painted over at some time. The stenciling that you see along the walls and on the ceiling had been painted over. But we made copies of what we could, and then that was all re-stenciled at the time the church was painted.
Do you know if there's any symbolism to that stencil design?
Not that we know
Yeah.
of. Not that we know of.
Was blue always the dominant color here in the church?
They say that blue is the Windish favorite color.
Okay.
So that's why so much blue is used.
What's the size of the congregation now?
We have around 660 on the books. We worship a little over 300 and one service every Sunday.
Wow.
So
Terrific. So you fill it up?
we do, downstairs and upstairs. So
Terrific.
And we opened the video with the view of that beautiful pipe organ up there. Jack, tell us a little bit about that. And I understand you might play that for us. In a few minutes.
Yeah, the pipe organ was put in 1904. That was the 50th anniversary of the congregation. So to celebrate that, they bought themselves a pipe organ. And it was built in Austin, Texas by Mr. Pfeiffer. And he only built 5 in his career in Texas. And this is the only one playing. They paid $1,100 for it in 1904. In 2010 and 2011, we had it completely restored, and it only cost $85,000.
Does someone play it?
Yes, it's played every Sunday.
Every Sunday? Oh, that's terrific.
Well,
And
let's
it-
start making our way back.
Yeah.
Can anyone translate this German?
Yes. That says, Lord, exalt yourself in your power, and we will sing and praise your might. And it's Psalm 21, verse 14. But if you look in the Bible, English Bible, it's Psalm 21, verse 13. In German, there's always one more verse in a psalm, because if it says a Psalm of David, that's verse 1 in German. English doesn't count that as a verse. So that's actually verse 13 if you look at, if you want to know, read it in English.
Yeah, let's make our way upstairs. Before we go, now is this the Ben Nevis?
That is the Ben Nevis. That was found a woodcut in the London Times. So we know that is actually the Ben Nevis. And then somebody made a painting out of the wood cut from the London Times.
Three-masted schooner. Okay, Becky, be careful now. on the
I
stairs.
will. I'm not gonna fall again.
Heard a story about you on the stair.
More impressive up close.
Yeah.
What about the older men?
Okay, we'll talk about that when we go back downstairs. That is a good question.
thought
That's
about
part
that.
of the history.
And I see a series of ropes here. Do y'all hand ring bells during the
Yes,
service?
3 bells in the tower. And the original bell that they brought with them on the ship cracked in 1904, and it's at the Lutheran College in Austin.
Oh, really?
And that's when they put the larger bell in, and then two more bells were added. Wow. Later.
And you ring it every Saturday night?
We ring it Saturday night at 6, all 3 of them, to tell people tomorrow's church.
Ah.
So you don't ring it on Sunday?
Oh, yes, it's rung at 8 o'clock on Sunday,
Okay.
and then at 30 minutes before church, and at 8:30 when church begins. And then again when church ends.
Ring it again.
And pastor has the biggest job when a member passes away. The large bell will ring. If it's a child who's not in school, the large bell rings 75 times, and that's the end of it. If a school child were to pass away, he would come over and he would ring it 75 times, stop, and ring it 75 more times, and it would be over. Now, when I go to heaven, he's going to have more work, because he'll ring it 3 sets of 75. And that's a signal for everybody to know somebody's passed away. Not who, but you know about,
Yeah, you know what
the
kind
age,
of person.
what
that
kind of person.
was. Yeah. Fantastic.
And the organ can be, we need no electricity to play this organ. We have a blower that furnishes the wind, but it can be played without any electricity
So in the
completely.
old days, somebody would stand here and
Yeah.
pump
That's
this
the-
thing
that's
while
the
the
bellows
organist
right
played?
there.
Huh.
You want to go over
That'd be amazing.
Track it.
That's wonderful. Now I have a question for Jeff and Andy. Do you know the name of that hymn?
No, I
No.
don't.
I'm thinking it's a mighty fortress of our God.
Oh, wow.
Martin Luther.
Because this is Reformation Week. And the colors, the Lutheran Church is a liturgical church like the Catholic Church, and the colors of the paraments change. Sometimes they're green, white, purple, but for Reformation and Pentecost and some other times they change to red. So that's why they're red this
Okay.
week.
Reformation.
Right.
Good.
So how long have you been playing this organ?
Great sound.
Well, the first time I played it was in 1968, but I wasn't officially, I was just visiting. And I was teacher here from 1980 to 83, and part of my job was playing the organ. And then I went somewhere else, and but then in 2000, the organist took a call to another church, and I've been playing it since then, along with two other members of the congregation. We share the responsibility.
Well, it's a mighty sound.
And it must be a great honor to play this organ too.
What makes it fun is these people sing. They don't mumble. They sing loud. And that's what makes it, the more they sing, the more fun it is to play.
Yeah.
And with the people sitting facing each other this way and going forward, the sound is just so robust. It's amazing.
Well, there's nothing in here to soak up sound. The walls are solid, the floor is rock, the ceiling is wood, so it's just, the sound just is great.
Is this local sandstone on the floor?
No, it's not. This was done in 2010, 2011. That's a new floor. But the old floor you can still see in that room behind the baptismal font. That is the original floor.
It probably was sandstone.
It's not red. The walls are made out of red sandstone that were quarried about 3 miles from here. And they're all different sizes. Some are small, some are big. That's why the plaster covers the walls. The walls are 2.5 feet thick below the balcony, and once at the balcony level, they're only 2 feet thick.
Let's walk around and let Pastor stand in the pulpit. And we talked about the dove. We have this over here, and then a lot of symbolism. The dove is on that light.
Oh, I didn't notice that before. Yeah.
Usually when we have a baptism, like we have this past Sunday, the baptismal fountain will be out in the middle, pretty much underneath the light there. And so you have the dove right above it.
Oh, you're right. This was built when people were much smaller. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, you wouldn't fit in there?
No.
I've learned when to duck.
Now, as I was coming up the stairs, a question occurred to me. I'm just asking for a friend, but What about the older men in the congregation?
Okay, well, the older men did complain as time went on, because in those days, men, of course, the physical labor was much more than men's physical labor nowadays.
Right.
And so knees wore out, everything started wearing out. And they said, we can't climb the stairs anymore. Can we sit downstairs with the women? No, you may not sit downstairs with the women. Well, then we guess we can't come anymore because we just can't get up
Yeah.
and down the stairs. So the congregation did then decide to let the men sit downstairs, but not beside the women.
Right.
If you look at the back bench in that corner, that was put there for the men who couldn't climb the stairs anymore. They could sit on that bench that's different than the bench the women sit on. And that bench got a name. Its nickname is the waiting bench, because when you convinced the congregation that you couldn't get up the stairs anymore, you were just waiting to go to heaven.
Well, they had another name for a bench like that around the old Texas towns, but I'm not going to mention
Yeah.
it.
That's the story about the waiting bench.
Waiting to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Good.
So now, if people are interested in coming to the church here, is really the only time they could view this church during one of the services, or is it open other times, or for tours or anything like that?
They can come to visit anytime. We're open 24/7. If they do like a tour, just let us know, and they can call 366-9650 and or 979-366-9650 and set up a tour depending on the size group they have, and happy to do so.
We have
Show us off.
key for this building.
Wow.
Never locked.
Never locked. Yep.
Just an amazing piece of history and culture preserved here. And of course, the Wendish Fest every September, right?
Right.
If you haven't come out to that, it's just tremendous. Wonderful food, great games for the kids. I've been my family and I several times, and it's just
Easter
wonderful.
eggs. Oh, that's a different.
No, the decorating of the Easter eggs. Yeah, talk a little bit about some of the aspects of the Wendish culture that are celebrated during that festival.
During the festival, we have the Pitakash, or bird wedding, the Vogel Hochzeit, depending on which language you want to use. But they go through having a bird wedding and depicting our first grade kids going through. They have a Braska who leads the wedding procession with the bride and the groom, and have other birds. They celebrate the spring festival because technically that's in January 21st. January 5th. Excuse me. And so, but because we have a lot of visitors coming in for Windish Fest, we have the processional event and depicted at that point in time. They also do decorating of eggs. We have a lady from Germany that sends over eggs every year, and so they sell those. Mr. Wiederhold does a lot of his woodworking stuff out of Lee County cedar. That's there. Ornaments and nativity scenes and so forth.
The Windish were Slavic people. Their language was very much akin to Czech. And the Czechs also have Easter egg decorating. It's a Slavic tradition, not necessarily German, but the bird's wedding, or Vogel Hochzeit, is a Windish custom. The children, on the evening before the 25th, the 24th, they put out empty plates, and the next day the plates will have cake and cookies on them because the birds had a wedding, and for the children putting out feed, seeds, and what have you for the birds thank them by giving them cookies and cake, and there are always little birdie feet prints on the cookies and the cake.
Y'all have a school here in Serbin as well.
We do.
Has it always been since the beginning of the church?
Since 1856.
Wow.
What is it?
The school.
The school.
Yes.
Well, I always say that we have the only school in Texas that started in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, because Pastor Killian, all 600 of these people were on the ship with their children, and he was already teaching at least religious lessons on the ship to the children. So yeah, but officially the school started in February in a smokehouse in 1856, in February, right.
Do the local Windish and the Australian Windish have
Yes,
any connection?
they went to Australia. They started leaving Germany in the 1840s, and the first groups went to Australia. And by the time the 1854 got around and this bunch decided to come, Texas was closer. Didn't cost as much to go as it would to go to Australia, so.
So is there any connection between those two
Oh yeah,
communities?
they have all, Serbin people have kissing cousins in Australia.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
they don't know them anymore, but they
If they meet them, they'll kiss them.
yeah.
Well, gentlemen, this was such a treat. I mean, this is such a beautiful church and such a beautiful community here, whose traditions y'all have held tight to and really celebrated. It's truly amazing. But yeah, again, thank y'all so much for having us. And Andy, you want to take us out?
Sure thing. You can always find us at FayetteCountyRecord.com. These videos, in addition to being on Facebook, they also go to YouTube. You can find us on Instagram as well. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for reading the paper.